So welcome everybody. Today I'm with my fantastic friend Hook. And Hook and I used to fly together when we were with Nissan North America. I was seconded over there to fly for the Americans, for the Yankees. And it was such a good experience, 2.5, 3 years, I think it was. And I was on the 550, the Gulfstream 550 and the 650. And it all came to an end when Carlos Ghosn, who was the boss of the business, got arrested off our flight. And we will talk about that a little bit later. But I haven't seen Hook for a couple of years, but we still very much keep in contact. And it's lovely to have you here, Hook. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so good to be on your podcast, to see you, and sit down and do this recording. Actually, my kids are looking forward to seeing this as much as I'm looking forward to doing it. If not more, actually.
Yeah, well, it's always a marker, isn't it? How embarrassed our children are of us, and yeah, I'm getting used to the fact that I'm slightly embarrassed that I'm throwing myself all over the internet.
They're excited. Yeah, they're excited. They're actually because they remember you. They remember Viraj. They remember just about everyone that that came to Nashville, and we went out for meals or got together and socialized. Yeah. So they remember you, and so so they're looking forward to seeing this podcast. So
good times, haven't they? And in fact, one of your boys has now become a marine pilot. We can talk about that a bit later. But give us a little bit of a backstory to yourself. How did you where did you got to start with your full name, because I've always struggled to pronounce that.
Okay.
And I'll try it now. Well, Ghosn Hookassian, but give us a background to your name and how you got into flying. And yeah,
it's an Armenian name, and so it's I'll say it in Armenian, and then I'll give it to you in English. It's Ghosn Hookassian, and so nobody really can say the guttural g, so it goes with Javan, and then Javan Hookassian, and the Hook stuck with my last name, the first 4 letters, so easy. Not very original, but it works. And so Hook has been my nickname ever since I could recall, probably from my middle school days. Yeah, off and on. Yeah. But how do I get into flying? I think any young individual is influenced various things. I was influenced by my John Wayne movies. I loved the flying leathernecks, and so I wanted to be a marine aviator pilot. And so the seed was sowed then, and over the years, decided to go into the Air Force. I really wanted to go to Marines, but I think it was the smart thing to do. I had a couple of individuals who guided me towards the Air Force. Went through a university where we have the ROTC program, Reserve Officer Training Corps, and you have to be an Air Force officer to be a pilot in the Air Force. And so I took that path and graduated university in 5 years. And after ROTC, there was a delayed entry at the time to get into pilot training. So finished my ROTC training. You have to do leadership evaluations and tests, academic tests and such. So I did well enough to be selected to go to pilot training, and went to pilot training, and I was not good enough to be a fighter pilot, much to my a lot of ill feeling. How about that? I'll just say it like that. It was not fun to be around me. I didn't want to be around me for a short period of time. But you come to accept it, and I was going to prove them wrong. And so went on, and I can't look back at it because everything has happened. Everything I have, I'm so grateful for, and all stems from my guidance, that I received, I think, from above to set me on the path to be not be a fighter pilot. So, but I enjoyed it. Good run, good experience over the years. Great experiences, great people, great travel locations, little ups and downs, as we all in aviation have seen. But I'm happy where I'm at. Very happy.
And what did you fly when you were in the military?
I flew initially the KC-135, which is the air refueling, and did that for most of my career. and took a 3-year hiatus from flying because you're supposed to do what we call a staff duty, desk job. So I flew the desk for 3 years. Did not enjoy that. Wanted to get back into flying. And then I was fortunate enough after I went back to the KC-135 to be selected to fly the Gulfstreams for the Air Force. And got to do that. Great lead-in, led me to the path of corporate aviation versus commercial aviation, because I think I was set up to go to commercial aviation. That's what I was thinking. But once I saw the opportunities and the opportunities to fly different locations, I think that's the key. So I don't want to, downplay the commercial aviators and what they do, because I think flying is fantastic for that aspect, but for me, I didn't want to go gate to gate. I wanted to go from country to country in my flying. And so I chose the corporate aviation side, which has been really good. Overall, it's been very good. We've had our downs, but overall, it's been good.
Yeah, hasn't it, Justin? You went through NetJets, which is a great training ground, wasn't it, for moving on to things like Nissan and where you're at now?
Mm-hmm. So so retired from the Air Force, almost had graduated, but retired from the Air Force, went to NetJets, flew Gulfstreams with them for a number of years, got furloughed, but I was able to find a job at Nissan about a year and a half or so later. And from Nissan, stayed in the Gulfstream, where I'm flying a Gulfstream now in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I didn't move very far from Nashville. And loving Chattanooga and loving flying the Gulfstream. I think it's a phenomenal airplane, corporate aircraft to fly.
Isn't it just? I completely agree with that. I was fortunate that I've had a good mix. I didn't go to the military, but I went to the airlines and flew Boeing 73, 75, 76 and I scratched the itch and decided that where I started out in the corporate world was the place to be. And just like you, I love the difference, the range of what we do. Every day is completely different. It can be very unsettling. And there's it's like anything, there's ups and downs about it, as we've all found. We've lost our jobs and we've found our boss, and Nissan lost his job quite spectacularly. But I love what you're saying there about the fact that when you went to the military, you had your John Wayne idea of coming out, 6 barrels, bang, 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 getting in the flight deck of a fighter jet and storming around the world and being the cracking old hero, all-American hero. But actually, this is the point, isn't it? Is that life really never goes in the direction that we've planned. And I think if we expect things to change, we learn to adapt, we learn to be flexible, then we learn actually that whatever lies in front of us is going to be a creative opportunity and a message. And so, I mean, because you have the faith, you have the church and things which you follow. But I mean, as you say, you weren't a nice person at the time. How long did it take you to get over the fact that you hadn't got the fighter pilot selection?
Far too long.
And what did you do? Yeah.
Far too long. And I look back at it now. Back then I was young. I saw the world black and white. They were so wrong. I can't believe they made this mistake. I was upset at them, not upset at myself and my performance, because I thought I had done really well. And I looked at my peers and I said, I'm just as good as you, if not better. But again, that's the older self talking now. Back then, that's how it was. And I was upset. And how long? I think it took like a couple of months. The good, fortunate thing is, maybe not even that long. I have to really think back, because once you graduate or about to graduate, very close, they tell you what airplane you're going to fly. And then afterwards you graduate, and then you're off to your weapon system that you're going to fly, the particular airplane. For me, the KC-135, so I had to go to school for that. So it was a very brief period. So I would say about a month, and I think about it really hard, where I was I drank a little bit more than I should have, I just not happy with myself, not happy with the Air Force. Again, I blamed them, not so much me in my performance. But I got over it. And once I was there, I was like, I was gonna be the best KC-135 pilot. And then you see the pilots that are there, and then you're going, whoa, these guys are pretty darn good too. You're not going to be number one from day one. So, again, and then one thing I've learned again over the years, and then this is the older person talking. I wish I'd go back, tell them, I was never humble. I should have been more humble. I'm still working on that. But if I had more humility, I think I would have been a lot better person, a lot better, perhaps even perform better too. I would have listened more intently. I would have been quick to shut my mouth, quick to listen, and even slower to judge and jump on someone else for being wrong at the time, from my perspective, being wrong. But yeah, those are the lessons I think I'm taking back, looking back on it retrospectively.
Yeah, that's so close to my heart. We used to have these conversations down route all around the world, didn't we, on a number of occasions. And I think that's the thing. Why, if we talk about from the male perspective, why do we need to be the best? Well, I have a theory about this, and I talk about it, and I'm sure I've referred to it in my podcast before. Is that in the old days it was a bit of a do or die thing. We couldn't afford not to try and be the best, otherwise we get left behind. And we couldn't afford that. Life was precious, resources were scarce, and we had to keep up. So I still think that we are conditioned or socialized men to be the big old hero generally. And I think that is what's causing an awful lot of problem in humanity now. There's an awful lot of people not feeling they're good enough. And I think the point you were talking about of blaming someone else, our ego gets in charge. And if we don't measure up to what we see as our own idea of success or hitting the right mark, or which is usually because of society's expectation, we're trying to, and we think we're not good enough. And then shame comes in. And once we get over the shame, we get angry. And then we start to want to have revenge, and we want to start poking the finger and blaming other people. And the more I think about this, the more I see it completely enveloping the world. So how do we, I think this is the thing, we're both in our 50s now. So how do we talk to ourselves, i.e. our children, because you've got 3 boys, I've got 2 girls and a daughter. How do I talk to them? How do I talk to all of their friends to learn the lessons that we could have really done well with learning in terms of emotional maturity, spiritual maturity, and intelligence that we generally don't get educated with when we're younger. We're not introduced to it.
No, that's a good question. How do you do it? There are times when our approach, when I'll say this, there are many of times as a parent, I've told my kids, do this, don't do that, learn from me. I'm doing this, I'm saying this for your benefit. So I told them, maybe the approach is not to tell them. Guide them, lead them, coach them, mentor them, if you would, a stranger. But on the flip side, a lot of times I've noticed my kids, and myself too, and I look back at it too, we take guidance, suggestions, ideas more openly from someone else. It could be a relative, but someone else. It could be a friend.
Yes.
Rather than a parent, because there's a parental relationship and there's a friend relationship. And I think sometimes where the message is coming from, who is coming from, it makes a huge difference. And I know I'm guilty of it, probably to this day. I know I need to, my kids are now, youngest is 25. So I at times catch myself, I bite my lip and like, oh, I can't believe I said that. And whereas I should not be telling them what to do, I should be more like guiding them, suggesting. And as you know, and we all know, it's life. The reason there's the word experience. It's life experience. You have to experience it yourself. And so that's the hard part of parenting too. It's hard to let go. It's like, let me share that experience with you so you don't get burnt. You do well, but at some point they have to get burned not do well on their own to learn.
I think that's absolutely right. And it's the advice monster. The advice monster comes out again. I think that's to do with our conditioning, our socialization. Is that what's our value? Well, we need to contribute something for the welfare of the people around us. We need to show that we've got something to offer. So
Yeah,
when we've got a bit of experience, oh yeah, I've got the solution to this, but then it doesn't empower the person we're talking to make that decision for themselves. And they may do it, and then they'll say, well, actually, it was only because you gave me the advice that I succeeded. And if they take the advice and they fail, then they're going to blame us or blame someone else. And I think you're absolutely right. Mentoring really is reading the personality involved. Everybody is different. We're all unique. We're not,
yes,
as I say, we're not black, white, rich, poor, British, American. We are human beings, soil bored from the earth. You have your religious beliefs. I'm spiritual, but it's essentially the same thing. Is that we're actually here to look out for each other, to serve each other, whatever the phrase is. And I think that understanding that we don't have the answers. You talked about humility. We don't have all the answers. We have a bit of experience, and each individual, if we can impart that story, the storytelling is the great thing. I found myself in this situation, and this is how I feel or felt. Doesn't mean to say it's going to be the right thing for you. And I know that you're going to fall over and break your leg and bump yourself or have this, and I will always be here for you. And we've got to have faith, don't we? I think we've got to have faith that there is a better chance of survival and getting through it than the other way round. And that's, for me,
yeah,
a huge amount of humility involved in that, and confidence and the creative mindset, knowing that it's going to go wrong at some point for our loved ones and the people around us and ourselves, and trying to represent that in a helpful way, in a coaching way, rather than a telling way.
right, right. And part of that storytelling and mentoring and everything, again, I'm talking with kids' relationship and friends' relationship. I think also the perspective you're coming from, if you're going to criticize someone and you're coming in from a place of love, you want to improve them, you want to help them. I think the message will come out better versus other times when I said I was angry. If I'm coming from a place of anger, fear, doubt, self-doubt, insecure positions, the message is the same wording. It may not even be the same words, but it's just coming out differently. It's kind of like texting. A lot of times when you text, you may have said the right words, but someone took it wrong because they're just seeing words, not the inflection of the voice and the love and the feeling. You can't put that in text. You got to do it in person. So same thing. Where's that coming from? From a place of love? People catch that. People will see that. And I think that's the hard key, not the hard part, the key.
Yeah, absolutely. It's at the end of the day, it's feelings. And I think you hear various different statistics. Words count for 7%, I've heard, of communication. There are so many other idiosyncrasies, the way, the inflection of the voice, the look in the eye, the warmth that we spread. But I think, how do we do that? How do we do that for other people? For me, well, we can't possibly do that unless we have that feeling of warmth for ourselves. You see all over social media, love yourself. And I don't think people really understand about that. I don't think people invest enough time to understand themselves. So, for example, we go to school and it's all about maths, physics, and chemistry. It's learn about external things, but we are really not encouraged to learn about ourselves. I mean, that should be the fundamental thing. I think, the good sort of religious context and the spiritual context are all about understanding ourselves, because we can't be useful really to anybody else until we're aware of what's going on inside us, how we're feeling, how we're reacting to ourselves and our ego, the basic operating system, how we add that executive brain, again, the neocortex at the front, the spiritual side, the real community-based side. I think it's very easy to isolate ourselves and back ourselves into a corner, and then we've got to provide the advice and we've got to tell other people and we've got to control everything, and nobody wins. Nobody wins, do they?
Yeah. No, that's so true. And sorry, my mind just went 90 degrees off because of what you just said. So I lost my train of thought because I had a certain thought, and then now you kind of sent me a different way. All I could say is it makes sense. I don't know how to articulate that though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
for me, I know that because I was wandering off there, and I'm trying to learn how to come back. This is a classic thing. When I was at school in the classroom, I just got distracted very easily. I just wanted to look outside the window and see and run around, climb trees, play sports, you
Mm-hmm.
name it, rather
Oh
than
yeah.
sit in the classroom. I was so easily distracted. I just couldn't do that. I think this is the classic sign. So I would have probably been diagnosed with ADD in the old
Me
days,
too.
which
Me too.
and of course that because you're not answering the questions, the teacher's questions, and getting top grades, I felt inadequate, which is why it took me so long to get to the stage of flying aeroplanes at 25. And it was only when I had a mini breakdown to have the breakthrough and think, actually, I'm the only one that's stopping me find my way. So again, I think that's the thing. In the modern world, there's even more distractions. We talked about it before, didn't we? WMD, weapons of mass distraction. What is distraction? How do people these days avoid being distracted? Setting those brilliant John Wayne visions in our mind, which can sound a bit childlike, but actually I think imagination is very childlike. It's very open, it's very clear, it's very unprejudiced. And if we can hang on to that imagination all through our lives, we can push through the distractions and the doubts and the fears and the insecurities. Yeah, but again, I think you've taken the time to think about this clearly. You've walked away and analyzed things going on in your mind, and you've come to that stage. And many people don't.
Not nearly enough because we're talking right now. I'm looking at myself. I'm going, boy, I need to have some quiet time with a journal and maybe some good questions from someone who's more learned on the subject. Ask me these questions, and I could maybe journal those answers. Maybe I need to take more time. I think that's the lesson. We're never too young to learn. We're never you can't stop learning. You always have to improve yourself and continue on. And it's not so much improving yourself, for others too. Because we were talking about how do you communicate with others. If I don't learn and I'm just doing the same thing over and over again, I'm going to run into the same wall the same way I've done in the years past. So you've got to evolve, learn, and progress. I hate that saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's not right. That should be wiped clean. That is not true for human beings. Maybe for a dog, but human beings, no.
Yeah,
I think we all have to.
Agree.
Yeah. And then what I think, if you're in our discussion earlier, I was the first in my family to go to college, university, and I had a laser focus, and that's one thing I do miss about my young self. When I wanted to do something, I had laser focus. What I had to do was do well in high school, get the grades, go to college, get accepted college, go to college, do well in college, do well in ROTC program to be selected to go to pilot training. And I don't know at what point my laser focus started diffusing, and now I feel at times I'm more distracted. I was still distracted when I was younger, but it seemed like I still had a very clear goal. And I think maybe that's what I at times have lacked, and I at times do lack, is having a goal, a vision of where I'm going to go. Great. I got this job at Nissan. Where am I going to go next, right? What do you want to do? Are you going to retire from this job and, ride off into sunset on that John Wayne, horse is that what you're going to do? Or in our case, fly an airplane until it's done and you hang your hat. So what's your end goal? So I think, I think that's something we all need to have. And myself, when I say I always start myself because I look at it inwardly. I don't want to say something to you that I'm not willing to do myself. So I need to do that. And so I think I need to have a better goal maybe, or a goal that's achievable in the short term and a long term goal. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do when you grow up? That's the thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm still saying that. I think we both are still saying that in our 50s.
Yes.
I don't feel remotely grown up. It's a wonderful
Nope.
thing, isn't it? Because it's about setting a vision for ourselves and not thinking that's the thing that we have to achieve. It's very easy to say, well, I've got to earn enough money to get a Range Rover or a 5-bedroom house with 3 acres of land or whatever. But at the end of the day, that's never going to be satisfying, because once we've got there, what's the next vision? And if we hang our hat and thinking that's the only measure of success, then life's going to be pretty disappointing. And there's so many of us, aren't there, in their 50s? I see this, some of my friends who've got this very cynical attitude towards life. And the classic thing is, oh yeah, kids don't understand, they don't respect, and they don't know what it's like. And I'm thinking, actually, for millions of years, each generation has been saying the same thing.
Same thing.
Goes back to your idea about limitations. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Effectively, we've identified ourselves as someone who has a brick wall around us and we can't break through, because there's that lack of vision, that lack of goal. Again, talking about the flight mission, which I often do as a representation or a metaphor for life, we can do all the planning in the world to get from London to Nashville, but we know en route we're going to be facing an awful lot of obstacles, whatever it might be. I talk about it being the thunderstorms of life, the emotional turbulence, the lightning strikes of fear, doubt, insecurity, and emotional exposure. And we may not end up in that destination, but what does that mean? Well, we deal with it at the time, get on the ground, regroup, refuel, get the maintenance done personally, find the people that can support us, and then we get back and we refuel and we replan and go. And I think there is no age limit that we should be putting on that. I think we get these mountains of layers of the onion piling onto each other, and we lose the context and it's all about vision, setting that childlike vision of where we want to go. So, I mean, where did you come up with that laser focus? Because I think that's very difficult now with so much choice in life, certainly for young people and for people moving on through the stages of life. Where did you find that focus?
I don't know. I really don't know. Well, first of all, we immigrated to the United States. I was 9 years old when we came to the United States. Grew up in Southern California, Hollywood, of all places, where we first settled, Hollywood, California.
John Wayne.
So John Wayne, baby. Yep, that's it. So when I say I was the first one to go to college, university, I think it was also, my parents didn't know what it took to get there. And I took it upon myself. That's what I'm saying. I was really focused. And I knocked on doors, asked counselors, asked teachers, and I was open to their guidance. And so I think maybe you don't know how to get there, but as long as you know what you want to do, you could ask, you could learn to get there. That's my biggest advice, I think I would say to anyone who's still young enough. I shouldn't say that. I just put an age limit on that. Who's still looking for something to do. Pick out what you want to do, what you think you want to do. And that could change. I went in initially as an engineering major thinking, you know what, I'll do engineering if it doesn't work out. But I had no desire not working out. So I don't even know if I could have done that. But when I was furloughed a couple of times in my career, I had no desire to go to engineering. Don't ask me why. And so obviously that ship had sailed. The engineering ship had sailed. I was never going to go back, because I did other things. Why? I don't know. I don't even know why I chose engineering, other than I needed some sort of a technical degree to get into the Air Force ROTC program. So where did that come from? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe just a young, impressionable individual sitting in front of the television watching John Wayne do his thing, whether on a boat, on a horse, or an airplane. And so I just took that. It was just, I always knew what I wanted to do. That'd be a pilot, but I'm glad it worked out, because I don't know if I could have done anything else.
No, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the excitement. You're obviously excited about something. And again, we can talk about emotions and we can talk about passions and purpose and all that stuff. But that sort of hides the fact that actually when we're young, I think we're massively curious. We're excited about life, getting up in the morning. I often say to my coaching clients, how did you feel? Can you remember how you felt when you were 7 years old and it was the summer holidays? You woke up in the morning and you just couldn't wait to fill in the space, fill in the blank. What is it? Go and watch the butterflies, kick a soccer ball around. Was it to go down and watch the airplanes or the trains or whatever it was? Go back to that feeling of excitement, because we just have such a blank page when we're young. And again, it's very easy to add the layers of the onions and stop doing that. But I think then people say, well, I don't know what my passions are. Well, have you gone out and have you tried something? Have you actually gone outside? Have you had a list of things? Well, today I'm going to go and see the Scout Club. I'm going to go and talk to them. Tomorrow I'm going to go and do some martial arts. I'm going to go and draw a picture. And people just seem to be hampered to even make that first step. We can have these big goals, like you said. I had a big goal to be a pilot. Never thought it was possible. But how do we make that first step? Well, you pick up a brochure. You pick up a brochure and think, I'm going to read about that. And then it says, well, you got to be technically this, technically that. Then you go and read another brochure and you think, well, is that the case? Well, I've got 10 brochures and 8 out of 10 saying it's actually, if you want to achieve it, you'll achieve it. And then guidance is the really important thing. This is where I think of in terms, we've talked a bit about emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, self-reflection, being able to analyze ourselves. The journaling, massively important. The next thing for me is the spiritual intelligence of thinking, you said I went out and got the guidance, not being afraid to go out and ask somebody to support. There's so much help out there, recognizing that we don't have to be the big old John Wayne hero of shooting everybody and I can do it. It's actually going and talking to somebody, finding the mentor, finding someone who's far less experienced. I make an effort to ask advice from my kids and their friends now, even if it makes me feel uncomfortable. I think we have to do that. Otherwise, we're not going to continue to learn.
Yeah, I agree. And I was going to say, one of the things, I was watching one of the earlier podcasts, Grady, and a career path that he ended up taking. And he said, you can't be afraid. You can't fear failing, because if you're afraid, you'll never take the chance, and you failed right then. So if you take the chance, you fail, at least you've tried. At the very least, you tried. And of course, the old saying, try again, because you will make a breakthrough eventually. And so there's the fear and asking for advice. I think that is so key. And I have asked advice from my kids. Not, hey, I don't know how to work this iPad. Can you help me with this? No, not like that. Just if you ask your kids for advice, it's amazing. And that also will come back around for you, because your kids sometimes might be going, well, if Dad, he's so much older than me, could ask for advice. Maybe I could ask him for advice. I'm not talking about little things, but Dad, what do you think about this? So I think, which has happened a couple of times and not enough. And what you said earlier is that if they take the advice and then now I'm like, oh, please work out. If it doesn't work out, I just failed them. I gave them bad advice. And so there's that fear of that. But again, you got to get over the fears. You can't, not a single ounce of worry is going to put any more hair on this head. Let me tell you, it's probably going to take it away. It's less worry. I think it'll be good. And like we were talking about, I love these conversations we're having. I love when we were traveling and doing that. And I think it's the circle that we had, and it made you think. I didn't even have to journal it, because I journaled it in my mind when we were having these discussions, and I loved it. And I think, need more of these environments where you could just sit down and talk to people, just like we're doing right now, you and I. But I would love to have 2 or 3 other individuals, getting their perspective at the same time. But I think that's the biggest thing I miss from our time when we were at Nissan, and because yes, we're all well traveled. I mean, we had folks from Australia, Japan, and so different perspectives. I loved it, and it was really good conversation. Sometimes we talked in depth, and sometimes we didn't need to because we didn't want to. We just needed to keep it superficial. We got other things going on, but we all sensed when it was time to like sometimes just, you know what, let me tell you about this time, and then you get feedback and you get a sounding board, and again, they learn with you sharing, and you learn when they share. So it's that open communication, the dialogue.
I think you're bang on, and I think it starts from what you were talking about with Grady, his great saying that not to be scared of the failure. The only real failure we've got to worry about is when it's death. You know, are we stepping in front of a juggernaut and going to get killed? That's the thing we need to be obviously aware of. But for me, when the emotion is triggered, that fear of failure, there's a great message there. Is okay, well, I've got two choices. Either I'm going to be laughed at, belittled, invalidated, and you name it from people around me, or I can stand up and just say, yeah, okay, you may think I'm a bit silly, but I'm not going to judge you for it. I'm not going to feel any less for it, and I'm going to dust myself off. We can go back and just, start swinging our fists physically or metaphorically and blaming and poking like we talked about earlier, or we can see it as, actually, here's my tough message. I've got to learn something somewhere. And actually, before we came on live, we talked about this, isn't it? That we both miss. It's very difficult to maintain focus when we're home. There's so many distractions. My toilet here, for example, needs proper cleaning. And when I was supposed to be doing an online course for my new job, I went to the loo and I thought, okay, well, how do I clean this loo properly? And I started to go into the rabbit hole of looking at vinegar and baking soda to clean the loo. And half an hour later, I'm looking at these things about how to organically do that. It's so easy to be distracted. But what we were saying, wasn't it, that when we were down route, we've got a case. We've got a case with some clothes. We've got a backpack with a laptop and an iPad and a phone and you name it. But we don't have that many distractions. So we had the opportunity to spiritually, I will always use this phrase, is to connect to the community. And I think this is where we need to take ourselves out and walk out the house with nothing but a phone. If we want to listen to a podcast or a book or whatever, some music, great. But actually look at everybody that comes past and smile and say good morning, or move out the way in the street and go walk the dog and shoot the breeze. Talk shit, as Emma Henderson, lovely Emma, and I were talking about in the podcast. She goes and meets her dogs with her dogs and meets her friends, and they talk shit. And she was saying the same thing to me. I don't think blokes tend to do that so much. But being down route was a great metaphor, taking ourselves out of the WMDs, the mass weapons of mass distraction, and actually just concentrating on talking, relating stories, getting the feedback, understanding that we don't need to be scared of that.
No, totally agree. I think at home, something in the garage needs to be put away. Something, the refrigerator making noise. So I got to have that looked at. And you'll do, and I will do anything other than sit and do what I would normally do in I don't say a controlled environment, but I wish I could bring that. I said that earlier to you. I wish I could bring that environment of the road at home, so I'm not distracted by things around me, of the to-do list or should have done list, rather than just sit there, enjoy the company of your family, friends over dinner or drink, whatever the setting is, and engage in a conversation about something, about nothing. But it's that social interaction will help you learn, maybe get out some frustrations, get some of the anxiety out, because you're sharing those thoughts and feelings. And at times when you're receiving others that are presenting their emotions, and now you are a sounding board, and then you can help them relieve those stresses that they have. So I think it works both ways. And I need that more at home, because on the road, or even when I say on the road, I have to be on the road. I have to go to a restaurant down the road and I'll spend 2-3 hours at a meal. Where at home, it seems more prep the dinner, make the dinner, clean up the table, and now what are we moving on to next? If it's not being lazy, sitting in front of the TV and not engaging in conversation. Whereas if you're out, what you said, get out, go shoot the shit, go out, and now you remove all the as much of the distraction as you can, and just focus on the people around you and engage in conversation.
That brings us nicely into the significant moment in our life, flying from Beirut to Tokyo with Carlos Ghosn in the back when we were working for Nissan. There were 4 of us, 3 pilots, and we landed in Tokyo after a very bumpy flight. Do you remember that? It was very bumpy. I can't remember who was actually, I think were you in the left-hand seat? Were you doing the flying? Or was David?
I don't remember. I just remember, no. I know I was one of the 2 pilots who took the last 2 shifts. And I want to say, I think it was David and I.
Yeah, I think you were sat in the front, and I was sat on the jump seat for that landing, and it was bumpy, as it often is there. And as David has pointed out before, it was an apocryphal moment when the boss Carlos Ghosn got off and said in his mixed accent, "This was a very bumpy ride. It's the most bumpy ride." And he got off the airplane, and unbeknown to us, he was going to walk into the terminal and be arrested. And it was a hell of a story for those who followed it. He was arrested for financial misappropriation and endured a horrendous time in a Japanese jail there, and actually escaped in a double bass case. I mean, it was stuff of legend, Hollywood movies. I think there have been a couple of movies made about it. But I think the thing for me is that we had no idea what was happening. We were supposed to be repositioning to Narita, which is a very short flight in the middle of the night. We'd been flying all night long, so we were tired. And yet we were told to go and park on the other side of the airport, tired, falling asleep. I remember being in the back in one of the seats, and then our lovely flight attendant, Tomomi, says, "Wake up, guys, this is serious." And then before I know it, I counted 18 people from the prosecutor's office on the aeroplane or outside. We had to sit down at the conference table, hand over our phones. We had to thumbprint on a declaration and explain what was going on. And it was just totally surreal for me, wasn't it? And then I'm going to let you jump in a minute. But the point was, we did actually end up flying to Narita right at the end of our duty. You were the commander on that particular occasion. I remember I did the handling flight on the left-hand seat. And when we got to the hotel, we thought, okay, let's have the most expensive whiskey. And we toasted each other, saying this may be the last time we see each other, because we thought, wow, blimey, this could be the end of our job. And I think that was the thing, talking about opening up conversation with each other. How do you feel? And I can't remember whether it was you or David said, did anybody actually remember that flight, that last flight? Should we have done that flight? Because it was quite an emotionally charged situation, and we all had our minds on something completely different. Yet we were flying very in quite difficult conditions in terms of the weather around. A very short flight, difficulties in communication with Tokyo and with the Japanese controllers, and we questioned ourselves, didn't we? But that's the importance of shooting the breeze with each other, of not being the big heroes, of thinking, what would we have done in a different situation?
At that situation, I got to think we did the right thing. Sitting back here years later, I don't know. So what I think to me is, if you're not sure, maybe you shouldn't have done it. But at that moment, armed with the information and the situation and the emotional impact of what just happened, I think we can't take that away in terms of what that meant as far as the unknown. Like you said, 18 individuals in their black suits and black ties. I thought it was like the Men in Black invasion, 18 of them. And so with everything that's going on, I have to really think about that one. But I think what it was just just out of nowhere. It's out of nowhere. And this is where I think earlier I said, I need to have a goal, be prepared. And I think one of your other podcasts, I don't want to look it up right now, who said it, but they said you got to be prepared, have a plan, and then be ready to deviate from that plan. And I think this is a case in point where we are so accustomed to flying this route. We've done it before. He gets off, he goes, we move the airplane. We have an evening, get on an airliner, or even get on an airliner that evening, we go home. So it's a routine, but that's the plan. Are you prepared to deviate from that plan? And so have a plan to deviate from the plan. I know I didn't, certainly not from that plan, that was presented to us. So, the situation that was presented to us. So, I'm still learning from that because I'm looking at it now. I'm going, what if that was to happen tomorrow on my flight? What am I going to do? Do I have a plan? And I'm thinking, well, I do not have a plan. I think you need to prepare. It's preparation. It's not a topic that we talked about just recently right now, but I think this is one of those things that I'm like, oh, I better prepare, at least have a idea what direction I'm going to go, how I'm going to pivot. Like you had talked about a previous podcast where you had the severe turbulence, and then the lightning strike. I think the lightning strike was more severe than the turbulence, but nevertheless, the lightning strike and the damage it caused and everything. Are you ready for that? Well, you didn't prepare for it to happen at that moment, but yes, you were trained, and then you have to deviate from that situation that was presented to you. And okay, if that doesn't work, we're going to do this. If that doesn't work, we're going to do this. So I think that's the thing. Boy, how do you prepare for that though? I don't know. How often does your boss get arrested? I don't have a good answer for that. I wish I did. It's kind of one of those things you just, at that moment, I'll say I was fat, dumb, and happy, just cruising along, doing the best that I could given the circumstances. So today, looking back at it, like, gosh, I could have done it better. I should have done it better, but I can't beat myself up either because, that's self-defeating too. But it's the lessons of experience we take with us and share it with others and hopefully with ourselves too. And, I don't know if I could ever be that prepared.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I think you've just hit the word, which I would love if I had the ability to get something banned from the dictionary, is should and shouldn't, because it's a load of nonsense. All we knew is what we knew in that particular moment. And it's so, you hear everybody, we all do it, default, I should have done this and I should have done it better and I should have passed this and I shouldn't have failed that. What a load of old rubbish. All we know is what we know in the circumstance. And I think for me, this is where the emotional side is really, the emotional maturity is really important, is knowing that whatever we come across, the unexpected, we can recover from it and not become emotionally hijacked from that. And I do an awful lot of study in neurophysically, as it were. So I know what all the chemicals, the cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, loads of other things that are reacting in our body when we find ourselves in these unexpected fear-based situations, but having faith that those chemicals will push through. And if we see that vision beyond it, not trying to pretend it's not there, not being afraid to admit it. That's the thing, isn't it? The fear, because fear is a normal thing. How do we face? Courage is all about facing the fear, not the absence of it. I mean, if you don't have fear, you're a psychopath. So in that particular situation, I think you're right. I think we did make the right decision because we were, all three of us, I think, are very emotionally mature and very spiritually mature. We work together well as a team, and socially and professionally, we work really well together. And all four of us actually in the aeroplane, and we made the right decision. And it was a potentially risky situation, but I think because of our commitment to the emotional and spiritual levels, we finished that mission off well. And it's a hell of a story now to pass on to other people. definition of confidence, to be excited by the unexpected.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And then I don't know all the chemicals that are involved, but I could tell you my senses were so heightened. It took, after our flight, when we went to Narita, it took me a while to just the adrenaline rush to come down. I mean, even after the meal, I wasn't ready to go to bed. Still was on that adrenaline rush of what just happened. What was that all about? Because it was completely out of nowhere. So yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things I look back with a smile on my face, but I know we didn't have a smile on our face except going, guys, it was great flying with you. But inside we're going, oh crap, this could have been my last flight.
Yeah, exactly. But then again, going back to what we were talking about before, is that still having that faith that it'll work out one way or another. And I think I'd had a couple of different jobs in a very short period of time coming up to that. And I always think that whatever turbulence we face in life, metaphorically, is an opportunity to think, well, where am I going to go from here? And you've moved on, I've moved on. I've had a really interesting couple of years. I've had my difficulties, just joined FlexJet now, which is very exciting. A bunch of new people, a new adventure. And when things go wrong, this is the thing. How do we resolve ourselves emotionally from it? How do we go to the next level? And I think that's the mindset. That's what I would try and encourage my children and anybody, or whatever age, to develop, really.
Right. Ed said it, and I think someone else who was the Air Force person, I can't remember his name right now. Got to be,
or Martin.
Yes,
yeah,
I think so. Yeah, and then I think they both mentioned it. And Ed said it too. It's like, be calm when the situation arises. Just be calm, collect your thoughts, observe, take in, using your resources, ask friends, and then take the appropriate action. It's kind of like the three things I was taught, and I'm sure it's same for you when we learn to fly. Maintain aircraft control, analyze the situation, take appropriate action. It's the same thing. You just fly the airplane. So calm down. Everything's going to work out. Just maintain control. Okay, now analyze the situation. And that's where you get inputs, you collect information, you analyze it, and then weigh the risk, do a risk analysis, risk assessment, if you will, and then take the appropriate action. And if that action doesn't result in the results you want, take another action, reassess and continue to take actions until reassess. So it's those lessons we've learned, but we're never too old to stop learning. And so I need to go back and refresh my memory on those things which Ed brought up. I just said with the, take and maintain aircraft control and analyze the situation. So yeah, just got to continue. It's like, it's recurrent, right? As aviators, we know that every 6 months to 12 months, you're at a training for refresher or recurrent training. So just recurrent. We got to stay current on our experiences, bring them up.
Yeah. Reflect. It's just the great thing is review the situation. And actually the concepts we're talking about are very much what Ed and I were talking about in the podcast a few weeks back. Ed, our lovely director of maintenance with Nissan, he talks about how do we deal with operational interrupt, and he's got the 5 C's: the remain calm, be conscious of what's going on, communicate, come together, and then coordinate and collaborate with each other. And I think that's the same thing, and always the review thing, because we have every chance of succeeding in these situations. I think most people struggle to think they're going to come through with something very valuable, however difficult it is, very valuable. I mean, we could talk about this forever. We've spent weeks in Tokyo and around the world, and even in Nashville. We've been in those bars till 4:00 listening to that incredible music. And again, like all my guests, I'd love to have you back here again. But this is it's been such a good conversation. Emotional
Yeah, it has.
maturity or spiritual maturity, how we overcome the doubts, and it's really important. And hopefully, and I know that you'll be passing that on to your children now. And one of your
Mhm.
sons is a military pilot now.
Yes, yes. He's right now in Corpus Christi, Texas, going through training. Hopefully this summer he'll get his wings. His training was delayed. Long story. Yeah, it has to do with the aircraft that he's been selected to fly. There've been some delays in the airplane. So once that's resolved, hopefully by August he'll have his wings. And then after that, who knows where they'll send him. I know he wants to go overseas. He wants to go to Japan. So I might be visiting Japan a little more frequently than I had ever planned on doing. So yeah, I'll be in the same continent as a couple of our good dear friends, Australia and Japan.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we haven't seen each other for a while, but we've got a great friendship, and I really appreciate it. And I
Yeah.
really appreciate you coming on and supporting the podcast and helping us all develop something that's beneficial for humanity. So, and you got to come back again. You got to come back on it.
I will do it.
In fact, when we see each other, we'll do another podcast.
Love to. I would love to. This has been great. Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed it, Ben. Really, truly. Been a pleasure.
Lovely.
I got a smile on my face because I'm really having fun. I'm having a great time. Really am.
Likewise. Okay, mate. All right, mate. We'll see you soon, and you take care.
You do the same. Bye-bye.